Welcome. Today we are going to discuss ways to use NC Eli checkpoint data. We appreciate your time and interest in being with us today and taking some time out of your busy schedule to watch this recording of the webinar, Checkpoints Now What? I'm Sarah Morrison. I am an early learning consultant in the Office of Early Learning, and I will be leading you through this content today. So, welcome. I'm glad that you're here, and I hope that you find this very beneficial. Our agenda for this session, we always have a welcoming activity. We are going to talk about why use NC Eli data. We will dig into alignment between pre-K and K, as well as alignment with the multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS, and NC Eli. And then finally, we will do some application of making NC Eli data actionable before finishing up with our optimistic closure. So let's begin with our welcoming inclusion. We want you to pause right here for just a few minutes and choose an image that reflects how you feel about the completion of NC Eli checkpoints for the fall period. So on a scale of Lucy, how did you feel about the NC Eli process? We invite you to pause for just a moment, choose your image, think about that, why you felt that way, and if it's something that you want to feel differently about next time, reflect on that as well. Perfect. So thank you for doing that. Reflection is always a great activity for us to engage in. So now let's talk about why use NC Eli data. Why are we inviting you to examine ways to use NC Eli data either in your school or in your school district? So, the framework for this session is grounded in helping educators and education leaders to discover the value in the formative assessment process and NC Eli data. The transition between pre K and kindergarten is pivotal to a successful experience with entry into formal public school education. NC Eli is directly aligned to the work in the NC Pre K program through the Teaching Strategies Gold Assessment platform. Children who are enrolled in NC Pre-K classrooms have assessment data attached to their school record and teaching strategies as they enter the kindergarten year via the transition reports. School level principals and receiving kindergarten teachers do not have to start with a blank slate for these incoming children. And statewide, that's approximately 26,200 students based off of 2022 data. So a lot of children are coming into kindergarten with some data already available within the Teaching Strategies Gold platform. There's valuable information within that platform that is readily available to help teachers inform instruction from the very first days of school. And again, better yet, the information included in the pre-K transition report for NC pre-K students is aligned to the kindergarten North Carolina Standard Course of Study, and it will support them with implementation of NC Eli. So NC Eli data is aligned to and supports the MTSS process in North Carolina, which is a school improvement framework that encompasses academic, behavioral, social, and emotional instruction and support. North Carolina MTSS employs a systems approach using data-driven problem solving to maximize growth for all. And in the same way, NC Eli data allows teachers to identify areas of individual student strength and opportunities for growth, which include the academic and social emotional needs of children. Both of these initiatives, NC Eli and MTSS, have a common goal, and that is to reduce achievement gaps and support equity. Legislation states that the results of NC Eli shall be used to inform efforts to reduce the achievement gap. That's from State Statute 115, 83.5. So, reducing the achievement gap also addresses issues of educational equity. The use of NC Eli data should be action and accountability driven rather than compliance driven. NC Eli is intended to support action by educators in service of children. So, we're going to invite you with educational equity in mind and knowing that the NC Eli legislation indicates the data is to be used to reduce achievement gaps. What are the implications if we walk away from NC Eli data, knowing that it's an often overlooked and underutilized data set? So, I want you to pause right here and reflect, or if you are in a room with other folks as you happen to be watching this, or you can write these down for a future discussion. But we want you to reflect on these three questions. How does NC Eli data currently inform instructional decisions in your district or school? What are the implications of not openly communicating with parents and families about this data set? And how can NC Eli data be used to support social emotional learning and skill development and to reduce challenging behaviors? So, I invite you to pause, think, respond, reflect, and then we will start back up. So, thank you for taking some time to reflect on that or to consider ways that you could possibly have future discussions around these questions. A final takeaway here, we do encourage you to be mindful that when data sets are collected and then not used, and we see that a lot with the NC Eli data set, is that it's collected, but then it just sits and nobody does anything with it quite often. There are ethical and equitable implications with that decision. NC Eli data does play a role in overall assessment data being collected in North Carolina. So when it's not used as designed, we do risk widening achievement gaps. So we'd like to illustrate a few direct connections between NC Eli dimensions and the North Carolina Standard Course of Study for kindergarten. So, teaching strategies objective 3B is solve social problems. This is one of the social emotional learning dimensions, and that has a direct connection to the the four different standards in kindergarten that you see here on the right side of this slide. Participating in collaborative conversations, asking and answering questions to seek help, clarify something that's not understood, to speak audibly, express those thoughts and feelings, and then to exemplify that positive relationship through fair play and friendships. So, the teaching strategies objectives that are included in the NC Eli are intended to align and do align to the standard course of study for kindergarten. We'd also like to highlight how some of the NC Eli dimensions are connected to later learning and instruction. So again, this purple box shows the skill that typically develops during the kindergarten year, the precursor or the foundational skill. So as you see here with 17A, knows some features of a book, connects specific books to authors, that's connected to RL 3.5 in third grade. So children start with 17A, and then by third grade, they are refining that skill from basic to much more specific. As you see there, RL 3.5 refers to text using specific terms like stanza and chapter. And in order to do that in third grade, children have to start with those basic text features like title, author, and illustrator. And you can see how these are both aligned in that literacy domain. An additional example we included here is example 9D. Tell stories about other times and places that have a logical order and include major details. That is connected to W 3.3. If we think about writing, in order for children to write narratives in third grade with the descriptors that are included in the standard, they have to start with oral storytelling about events that they have directly experienced. So, keeping in mind that those oral language skills support later writing skills, and just remembering that development does not occur in silos. We know domains are connected and often interdependent. We also know that practice makes permanent. And children must have opportunities to practice appropriately in order to advance in their development and their learning. So just a few highlights there for some of the connections, because sometimes the feedback that we hear is there feels like there's a little bit of a disconnect. So, wrapping up our discussion on the value of utilizing NC Eli data, we do want to remind you that the NC Eli assessment process is designed to be ongoing, with a primary intention being to drive instructional decision making and make instructional adjustments in the present. For formative assessment to fulfill its role, it must take place in a continuous manner. Remembering that effective assessment practices tell us that one assessment alone cannot determine or capture all of a child's skills and abilities, formative assessment serves to provide information during learning rather than a one and done that occurs periodically. The inclusion of observation practices within formative assessment allows the assessment, if you will, to meet the expectations of responsiveness, authenticity, and strengths based focus that is so important during the early childhood years. All teachers and districts have access to the North Carolina Early Learning Inventory and the TSG platform for the entirety of the school year, and the support of both DPI and the State Board of Education to utilize it in the ongoing manner that it is intended for. So we want to shift and think about how can we make NC Eli data actionable, and that is linked to understanding whole child learning and development. So we want to remind you that data from the NC Eli, again, is aligned to objectives for whole child learning and development. The age levels or groups that you will see within the available teaching strategies reports are intended as a guide to help the reader or teachers know where to start when they're using each goal and developmental indicator continuum. Generally, the developmental indicators describe expectations that many children will reach toward the end of their respective age level. They are not, however, hard and fast requirements or expectations for what children should be able to do at the end of the age level. The widely held expectations for kindergarten children are represented by the purple color band in the Snapshot by Dimension report. We acknowledge that this is the expectation toward the end of the kindergarten school year. Again, this data and its associated reports allow teachers to monitor and adjust instruction to meet each individual child's developmental needs aligned with the whole child approach. So you see a short link on this slide. This is a link to the North Carolina Early Learning Inventory, Objectives and Development for Learning, or ODL, as you might hear them referred to. That link is going to be useful for interpreting the reports that are available for NC Eli data analysis, and we're going to use some of those reports in just a few moments. So we invite you to enter that link, open that document, and keep it handy as you finish up the work in this session today. So to begin this section of content on making NC Eli data actionable, we would like to discuss a few reporting options that are available to administrators within Teaching Strategies Gold, but they're not going to be our primary focus today. The assessment summary report is available and most applicable during the checkpoint window for monitoring completion. And we do hope that you were able to utilize the assessment summary report back during the fall for that purpose. As you move beyond the checkpoint period, the assessment summary report will be useful if you have any gaps in your data. If you had a school with lower than expected completion, the assessment summary report can help you dig deeper into that. The raw data export is also available for download, and it is just that, it is raw data. You can utilize it to disaggregate data in many different ways with the help of a spreadsheet. For several years, the group of consultants in the Office of Early Learning, we created these wonderful color-coded spreadsheets for districts utilizing the raw data export, but we no longer have the manpower to do that. If you love data, you are welcome to dig in with your raw data export. And if you desire any additional guidance on using that raw data export or how we used to configure that report and that spreadsheet, please reach out to your regional early learning consultant. So before we share the NC ELI data protocol that we have developed in the Office of Early Learning, we want to show you a quick video on how to generate a report that you're going to need to use as you use the protocol, and it's the snapshot report. So I am going to get out of this and get into this.
Teachers and administrators can generate the snapshot report in My Teaching Strategies to get an at-a-glance overview of their class's assessment data after each checkpoint. This option also includes the ability to generate the report in a graph output. From the report area, select Go for the snapshot report. On the report criteria page, you can drill down to a specific program, site, teacher, class, or child if you are an administrator. Teachers can select a class or specific child records. Otherwise, all child records within your access will be included. The child demographics option allows you to filter by gender, race, ethnicity, and primary language, among other options. The checkpoint period is defaulted to the current period. You can select a different period if needed. The report can be generated by area or by objective and dimension. The report can be generated by area or by objective and dimension. Please note, if your program is using the full set of objectives and dimensions in gold, certain reports, including the snapshot report, require 70% of items per area to be completed in order to produce a valid and reliable area level score. When the minimum number of items are not completed in an area, there is not enough data to produce a reliable and valid score for that area. This most commonly occurs when teachers use the Not Observed option when entering checkpoint data for an objective or dimension, and then finalizing the area. An objective or dimension that is marked as not observed will not count toward the minimum number of dimensions required to complete 70% of an area. For more information, check out the support articles listed below this video. You can include both finalized and unfinalized checkpoint levels, or just finalized checkpoint levels. You can compare your data to widely held expectations or to kindergarten entry. Finally, you can decide to generate the report at the organization level for each program, site, or all the way down to each child level. Your criteria selections are captured in the summary on the right side of the screen. Select Generate Report, and you will be taken to the Reports queue. On the Reports queue screen, you can edit the report name, check the status, and once the report has completed generating, a table link and a graph link will appear. Select a link to view the report. The table view includes the areas or objectives and dimensions on the left. For each item, you will see the number and percentage of children whose knowledge, skills, and abilities were below, meeting, or exceeding widely held expectations, or emerging into or having accomplished kindergarten entry benchmarks. For administrators, one table will appear for each included entity. So here, we're looking at the entire organization. If you selected sites under output type, for example, you would see a table per site. For teachers, they will see each of their classes, or one for each included child record. The graph view includes the areas or the objectives and dimensions across the bottom, and the number and percentage for each category going up along the left-hand side. For more information, please review the articles listed below this video.
All right. If you want to, you have the ability to go back and rewatch that video. You would go into your Teaching Strategies Gold account, go into the support portal, and then you can find it there under Ready, Set, Go videos. So that was how to generate the snapshot report. All right. So, the Office of Early Learning has developed an NC ELI data protocol that can be used at the district and school levels. Using the NCELI data protocol to reflect on the current performance of students in each of the objectives and dimensions of learning helps classroom teachers, grade level professional learning communities, school administrators, and district administrators to better understand whole child development within the context of the NCELI data. As individuals and teams reflect on the data, trends and patterns may emerge. The discussions that are inherent when using a data protocol are the basis for making the NCELI data actionable. We will allow time for district level analysis of the 24-25 NCELI data using the OEL created data protocol during this session. This process is similar to the data protocol process developed by the OEL for analysis of amplified data, if you are familiar and accustomed to working with amplified data. The NCELI protocol was created to answer the question checkpoints, now what? So the NCELI is non-standard and qualitative by design. Therefore, there are multiple layers to data analysis around this tool. As we walk through the tool, we encourage you to look and learn. And then following the initial walkthrough, you are going to have time to run your district, school, or class report with some detailed directions. All right, so right here, we invite you to either use the short link or the QR code that you see on the screen to open up a district level version. So this is a sample district level version of the NCELI protocol, and we are going to take just a moment to walk through that with you. All righty. So we've opened up this district level protocol, this sample that we have. You're going to notice at the top that this applies to all kindergarten students because NCELI applies to all kindergarten students. The steps are listed there on the left-hand side. Any resources that you may need to complete each step are listed on the right-hand side. There are direct links there for how to generate the assessment status report at the district level. Remember, if you're an administrator, you have access to that if you have any gaps in completion data. And then again, there's a link there for how to generate the snapshot report. There's a direct link there for how to do that. So that will get you going, and then you will be able to follow these steps. So as we scroll down in this sample district level protocol, we have all of the dimensions and domains listed there on the left. You can see them divided into their domains: social, emotional, physical, language, and so on. And what we did was run that report, and then we took the information from that report and we dropped that into this protocol to make it all in one place and a little bit more streamlined. So what you see here is the percentage of children that fall at a particular level and the number of actual children that that represents. So this is some actual data we pulled from the platform for a district. And this allows us to, at a glance, be able to see how many children and what's the percentage of children progressing toward that skill, already meeting that skill at the fall checkpoint, and how many might be outliers and exceeding that particular skill area. So as we look at those, what we want to do to make this data actionable is consider making an end of year goal. So what might be a reasonable goal to move those children, that percentage of children that are in the progressing column, over into the meeting column? So if you think about this for a moment with this kindergarten and NCELI, exceeding is fantastic, but our real focus right here is on closing achievement gaps. We really want to move these children that are in that progressing level. They fell below that kindergarten range, which is normal and is perfectly okay. Some children are going to be in that progressing range in the fall of the year, and that's perfectly okay. But what can we do, and what might be a reasonable goal for moving and switching those percentages and getting some movement so that we have more following in that meeting range and less in that progressing range? So you can see how we developed some goals for the end of the year with each of these skills, trying to be realistic about what we know these skills encompass. 3B, solve social problems, is always a challenging skill. So I'm not sure that we could get 80% of our children there by the end of the year. If we exceed this at the end of the year, great. But if not, at least we're trying to be realistic about movement on this. But we definitely would want to see 57% over here under solve social problems in the progressing range. We would want to decrease that. So if we could get that down to 30%, that would be fantastic. So you can see as you scroll down through this example, the percentages that were pulled and then the goals that we made, right? No, we did not do an exceeding goal for every single skill because it's great if we get exceeding, but we really are trying to focus on moving children from that preschool range or that below the kindergarten range into the kindergarten range. Uses fingers and hands. We did do an exceeding goal there for the simple fact that this leads into writing. This is a direct connection into our ability to do writing. So we decided to tackle an exceeding goal. We want you to make this work for your district and your situation and scenario. As you come on down and see there, we have our language dimensions. Cognitive attends and engages. Our literacy dimensions, which again are not duplicated in M-Class in kindergarten, and amplify data. These are separate. You do not cover these. So you have the NC ELI to capture this information for you. All of these are those foundational and precursor skills that are going to build into some of the skills that are assessed on Amplify. Notices and discriminates alliteration will build directly into PSF. So this is your precursor data that you can use when you're thinking about incoming kindergarten children and what you look like at the November checkpoint versus the BOY that you did, and then coming up on your MOY assessment that you'll do. So you can scroll on down and continue to see those percentages, where children fail in the fall, and what that EOY goal may look like. Now, the reason we're encouraging you to set an EOY goal is, again, to make this data actionable. You don't have to set an EOY goal for every single objective or dimension. Maybe your school or district just wants to focus on social emotional. So you set some EOY goals for social emotional. What that will mean is you'll have to have teachers go back at the end of the year and enter ratings again. It's not necessary at EOY for them to enter all of the data and observational data, but if they can go back in and just mark the ratings, then you'll be able to see where you fail at EOY and have some comparative data and some discussions with your teachers around that. Maybe your school or district just wants to focus on the literacy skills, so you decide to focus on just those four for an EOY goal. So whatever is best for you, we want you to make it actionable and to meet your needs. Once you've worked through your percentages, your districts, or your percentages, how many children, and you've made some EOY goals, then we want you to come on down and engage in discussions around this data. And so you'll see here that based off of the data review above, what areas can we focus on to increase the likelihood of children reaching those widely held kindergarten expectations. Remember, this is all about closing those achievement gaps. So when we look at that data above, those four dimensions were the ones that had the most children below the kindergarten level at the fall checkpoint. So those were the four that we pulled out. Then we wanted to think about what resources do we already have in our district to support these skills. So thinking about each of those skills, what resources do we have that are available to us? Then we want to talk about what are some specific strategies that we can use as teachers or as administrators in support of teachers to help them support these skills when they're working directly with children. So we looked at this, we talked about the specific lessons for the specific curriculums that they have, and talking about implementing resources with fidelity. And that is at the local level and at the curriculum level. What kind of support can school level administrators and instructional coaches provide? That's in there as well. And then the last box that you will see describes actionable next steps to support district expectations. So how are you actually going to make this happen at the school level, and who is going to be responsible and who will follow up? And I would strongly encourage that you add a timeline, you add some dates in here to support this this work of next steps. So you can see how we included that coaches and the elementary director are going to create a crosswalk for teachers that highlights alignment between the Eli dimensions and the specific Hegarty or Bridges lesson that this district uses. Maybe hold a district discussion on how to incorporate NC Eli data and information into kindergarten report cards. So there are lots of different options that you have available here. We just want this to be a way for you to make this data actionable, that it doesn't just sit and nobody looks at it, and we don't use it to benefit reducing achievement gaps and in support of children. So there is a walkthrough of that sample district protocol. So with that in mind, and we've walked through that, we also do have a school level version of the NC Eli protocol. The school level version is slightly different from the district version, and the school level version is designed to be used directly with teachers. It is best facilitated by a school level coach or an admin or an instructional leader that is familiar with NC Eli following the completion of checkpoints. So we're not going to review the school level protocol today, but we do encourage you to share it with your leadership and your instructional support staff so that it can be used and put into the hands of teachers for the benefit of children. A noteworthy highlight for using the school level protocol and asking teachers to set EOY goals is this is where the alignment with MTSS comes in. So when they're reviewing NC Eli data, we want to ask teachers, what are those general trends that they notice about their class relating to a specific objective or dimension? What is their data telling them about core instruction related to the NC Eli objectives and development for learning and grade level standards? Can they make any connections to their DIBELS literacy data? Are there any students that would be candidates to receive supplemental instruction, that Tier 2 support? Using the NC Eli data protocol, teachers can use data decision rules to analyze which children are below the widely held expectations at a checkpoint period and those children who are not projected to meet the widely held expectations by the next checkpoint period, which would be the winter, or you don't think they're going to get there by the end of the year. And if they display similar patterns of need across multiple data sources. So you're seeing some things that are below expectations on NC Eli. You're seeing things that fall below expectations on Amplify. You might be seeing some things that fall below expectations in the math, right? So this supports, decision rules. And are there any outliers that might need even more support and possibly Tier 3? So this is where your alignment and connections to what's happening in MTSS come. This is yet another layer and a piece of data that you have to support you as a teacher and as an administrator supporting teachers at the school level with the MTSS process. All right, so now we're going to give you a chance to apply what we've talked about at the school level. If you are joining us as an instructional coach, as a school level administrator, or as a teacher, we're going to invite you to pause here. You're going to see some steps on this slide, as well as some links to some blank copies. So what you have there is a short link to that sample school version. We walked you through the district version, but you have a link to the sample school version there. It is very, very similar, and you will see that. We also have a link here to a blank copy of the school version of the protocol. So we invite you to create your own copy, run that snapshot report, and then use that protocol to analyze your own data and create actionable steps. We highly encourage and support doing this as a kindergarten PLC group. You will probably need more than one session to engage in this discussion. You can invite teachers to complete this on their own, and then everybody brings their data together and their protocol together to have some discussions around this. How can we actually use this data that we've collected and spent time with NC Eli to make it actionable, to do something with that? So you have an option to pause here, do it on your own for a few minutes, pause, come back to it later. So whatever works best for you. With that in mind, we're going to go ahead and move to our closing activity before you pause. And we want you to take a picture of these, write these down, but certainly have a discussion to consider your next steps. So, does your district have a vision for early learning? And if they don't, who can you bring to the table to discuss and develop one? And why would it be important to do that? If your district does have a vision for early learning, how does it align with research based strategies for early learning? What current practices in kindergarten align with research based strategies for early learning? And how are teachers using information gained from the NC Eli process to guide their planning and provide targeted learning opportunities? So, we do encourage you to engage in these conversations with your colleagues, with your leaders at the school or the district level. Finally, we want to share contact information. You're welcome to reach out to any of your early learning consultants. We will be able to support and in any way that we can. You can see the zones of the state that we have divided here: Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 3, and Zone 4. And so you are always welcome to reach out to any of the support folks in the Office of Early Learning. We thank you for your time today, for taking the time to listen to this recording, and encourage you to reach out with any additional questions or any additional support that you may desire. Thank you so much.